Okay, so I'm going to start off by going over some things I said I would do that I tried to do it right away in regards to where they may have changed it in this Bible because of the stuff that I was through. And now, where in the beginning I talked about how if they do something, they flip things. I use Genesis to describe how they can flip things where it becomes void. So if you take, for example, number 4, and God divided the light from the darkness, and they made the void, then they would flip it and make the void light. And like I was saying before, it's kind of like being in an outside prison where they control out where you go, how you do things. When I got back here, my phone would constantly do eye alters and talking about how we are animals and all that kind of stuff. And basically, what they're drawing nigh on is making an outside prison, but they're doing this for, job and stuff. So I want to get into 3 major things. John 19:11, Peter, and of course, supposedly Satan or whatever, but that's not really what I see. I see that they treat people like animals and they allow someone to take a spot they don't need to have, and it changes the word. So I'm going to go through it where they change the word in a certain kind of way, and no, you're not going to live okay. You're not going to live okay. No one is, because this is pretty thick. Especially for most people from the generations where they got fed on a lot of stars and terrorisms, everything you see tells you how to operate. To show that, they went straight up into like emoji status, flipping through your phone. It tells you what to think, 10 hacks to stabilize your life, all that kind of stuff. And everything's generic. Everything's like Avatar. When I turn on the TV, sometimes when I even turn on like the networks or something like that, they will have, how to enhance your hair growth and all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to go through Luke and stuff like that. But it'll be preaching of God, once I click on it. So what they did to me was really, really pretty horrible. And I do not need to rehash this. I just made a video about it, but I got interrupted again. So bear with me as I try to run through it again. The whole out of the belly shall flow living waters. They did this whole like fairy baby thing where companies get involved and they need to sell and they want to make jobs and they want to replace the baby boomers. And basically what happens is if like the person that you're with, even if it's a person that doesn't like you, who absolutely hates you, they might let that go for like a long time. And then if it's somebody that you're going about your ways and it's pretty free, they can use endian eye alters or whatever it is to try to pull you off it so that they can get to this spot where they're going to supposedly eat based on these principles. Now, if you turn to Luke 22:21 on page 1141. Okay, so on the 15th on 22 to the 15, where Jesus says, with desire I have desired to eat this Passover with you before I suffer anymore, and eat thereof until it be fulfilled in the kingdom of God. So what they did to me is they did like a whole, fairy baby type thing, whereas if it was okay, they even sent eye alters to my phone that said, you're gonna get pregnant. It's just that you're gonna get pregnant. When I started working for these companies over like a restaurant, after they did what they did, and I basically tossed my Visa card after that. They did it on the Syria thing. They did it on the on me, basically. Um, After they did what they did, I got a bunch of eye alters on my phone of videos about women talking about, oh, it's a sign of God that you're gonna have a child and stuff like that. And then they had all these people try to chase me around, like they're gonna like take me out, and like everything that went against everything, like as if I would be so melted down. That's what I would only want. It was like kind of like I said, when they had this idea that baby basically kick them out of wherever they're at, make them work at companies in certain areas. That way you can get around trafficking and necromancy. Those are the two main ones. I said that before, like basically all you have to be is against trafficking and necromancy, because these people chased me around, sent me little messages on my phone that it was okay, you're gonna have a fairy baby, or it was a fairy baby. I can't even tell you how angry or upset I was. I mean, it's just ridiculous. So I go to work for this company that did it, and this is why, even though a lot of people don't really care or even know this, my grandmother was like, smoke everywhere, smoke even in restaurants. The reason being is because they do have the technology to do this shit. They do use Visa cards to kind of bing off of what they want to get money for, so they can set up an outside reality, so they can build, so they can send you to work in certain places, and they'll do it to certain people that they think they can, especially those that they believe would fall for it, and nice people too, right? So what happened after that is like witches or whatever were saying, no, you're gonna have a child, a spirit child, and it wasn't even anything like that. And really, it wasn't. It was the most horrible thing ever. Um, and they chased me around, and I ended up working at a different restaurant. So because of that, it's either robotics or restaurants, and they basically bing off of one and the other. They bing off the heart. They try to sell some sort of vanity. They try to sell some sort of pride or whatever to somebody to get them to pay for them to fall, in a sense. And then they treat it like, you're outside the garden now, you're all free, but really it's just a prison where they're trying to brainwash you and train you to go a certain way. Like they put up flags, they put up everything, markers, everything. And this is why I'm bringing you to page 1141 of the Bible and where they did it at. 22 down is about Judas Iscariot. Judas Iscariot is the son of Simon, of one of the Simons. And so you'll all notice that. I'm going to talk about Satan, but really it's usually people just pinging off of each other and someone playing the Master's card. However, a lot of people actually believe it. They watch their stars in terrorisms, they watch their TVs, and like I said, while this stuff is going on, you're being pushed around from company to company, they don't pay attention to it. They live their life normally. So let's say you're a person who's separate from it, you live well, you're happy, and then you hear somebody like just, you don't know what to say, they make a weird comment or something like that, and they think that that person needs to be in a mental institution, because they don't see it like from their standpoint. And they're trying to make companies to replace the baby boomer generation where it actually started at, and led to a whole absolute lawlessness and crap like that at one point. So now they need it to be replaced. So now they have because you had a real good opportunity, and I did use my opportunity to say no to trafficking, no to necromancy, because it is unfathomably unbearable. It is horrible. Like I said, the Simon, they mirror Simon. So Judas Iscariot's dad was one of the Simon characters. Now, it talks about how the chief priests went in there and they made a goat covenant, if you read it, and the chief priests and the scribes thought how they might kill him, let's say Jesus. This is on the left side of it. Now remember, they use stars and terrorism to kind of divide this idea. But what I'm going to tell you is that it will stop people from being able to protect their kids, their sons and daughters, stuff like that, from living this kind of hell where you got like traffickers or money launderers, but also connected to the traffickers who set up businesses, and then these guys over here who are kind of like, yeah, we're working 2 jobs, we're like slaves, but they won't hire you, they'll hire foreigners. Well, the girls get tossed into the ocean, or the guys get tossed into the ocean and stuff like that. And this is why I'm going to bring up 22, how the chief priests and scribes sought how they might kill him. They feared the people. Then Satan entered into Judas Iscariot, being numbered of the 12. And then they did from there, because I think actually Jesus loved Judas, and that's why I always sing my only star in terrorism on that is all around the world statues tumble for me. And that was my favorite, because one day it's going to come back to get that before that ever happens again. And he went his way and come in with the chief priests and the captains of how he might betray them. So as for the wheat, you jump over to Paul. Paul's out in the ocean somewhere in the New Testament, by Cnidus, Crete, and he gets a ship from Alexandria, and he tells everyone in the ship that you will all be saved, but you have to throw out the wheat. And remember that where Peter was told on page 143, before the cock crow thou shalt deny me thrice. Just say 3 times. For rice. How much is the price of rice in China? No, come on. Alright, so before the cock crow thou shalt deny me 3 times. And Paul's out in the ocean. Remember that Jesus said Satan has desired to swift you as wheat to Peter. Paul's out in the ocean. This is afterwards. And he tells everyone on the ship that you're all going to be saved. But the ship will be destroyed, the one from Alexandria. And he tells them to throw out the wheat. Take the wheat out, so whoever's the wheat, and as in implying, and once you get into Buddhism, you're like looking at people like supposedly they're food, because you're going to make companies, you're going to kind of like bing off of certain areas of the Bible and even try to change it in a certain kind of way where it's stars and terrorisms type thing. And sometimes I'm like, nope, I'm not going to do it, because he throws out the wheat, the ship still gets wrecked. But the ship still gets wrecked. At that moment, before then, Paul said that he saw an angel. It was by Cnidus or something like that, if you look it up. And they throw out the wheat. He says the ship will be wrecked, but they still throw out the wheat to keep it floating. And then the cock throws twice in this, and then you see the wheat connection later on when you see Paul's. And basically, you're like, how do I explain it? The tears of the ocean is the wheat, because you're like the wheat. You're going to be thrown out there of your good standing or whatever it is, so that they can make a company, they can set up things all around you, see how it works with this type of brainwashing, possibly, or whatever. But they want to make companies to replace this and that, and you're going to be the wheat the ocean basically and see how it goes. It usually never works. It actually works in your unfavor. And that's not a word, but not in your favor. Not in anyone's favor, actually, in the long run, because later on they do this horrific thing where they force people into certain areas that they don't need to be in, and they treat them as wheat for the ocean. Well, they're gonna live life, and once you hear about a crazy story once in a while, you're like, oh, well, that they just need help. Give somebody a job to help them, and then they start building like that. But they don't realize that everything had just changed. You're gonna live a life of like watching TV. You're going to be missing a lot, and you're not really sure what it is. I'm sure that a lot of times people who live like that don't even know what they're really missing, but they listen to everything else. Anybody who talks about, the tears of the ocean is the wheat, they get, and this is my phrase because of switching things out in the Bible. It kind of puts people in a different place. So you got the left side here, 22, and you got the right side. The right side starts at 7. Then came the day of the unleavened bread, when the Passover must be killed, and you're going to separate those, because when they troll, when they're looking for people to cut off so they can kind of build companies and make slaves, and usually a lot of times when they come so hard like that, nobody's going to do it. And they say that, well, that's an excuse to have, foreign bodies come in, set up the money laundry system, set up other foreigners coming in doing this and this and that. And you can be nice to them, but in the long run, it's not good for you. And that's why I said 2 things you gotta say you don't like is trafficking and necromancy, because they both will affect. And like I said about the just like I said about the fairy baby thing, and that's based off of that concept, because I'm not here talking about how I love Jesus, I really do, but I'm not really blessing the Bible. I'm going through what they just did, and I'm going to show you that they did change it. I'm going to make this video probably 30 minutes long 30 minutes wrong too, because that's where you find all this stuff, and it's really kind of horrible. So if I go down to 15, where it says, with this desire, I have desired to eat this Passover with you before I suffer, and I will not anymore eat thereof until it be fulfilled in the kingdom of God. Okay, so the company I went to work for, after they did that whole fairy baby thing, sent me a little birthday card that said, happy birthday, Sophie. Thanks for caring about the kingdom. Which Jesus said himself he would not eat of this bread until the kingdom of heaven be fulfilled, and they basically fucked that up, because and did do something, because you would not get a card like that. Plus, a lot of people who believe in this duality of man, woman, God, and all that kind of stuff, it starts with like a lily thing, which they did chase me around with that. And then also now Sophie thing. The Sophie thing where they say that's the knowledge. So I'm supposed to be here talking to you about knowledge. All I'm here doing is talking to you about what they did horribly mean. It's not really knowledge. It's not. And Sophie's not, the gift of knowledge. It's more like a child of rage and you see that a lot of times too, because a lot of times they're sending things to kids that are so like based off of like emotion, like what you could feel, what you could possibly control, but you can't. And they won't even get up and play with you sometimes. They're just like, they're using levels all the time. They're using computers all the time. So they're really like I said, you're not really learning from Jesus. You're learning from a computer system that is based on levels. When my family, my parents watch TV, and a lot of times a lot of people don't. It doesn't really affect them because they are naturally that way, just different. But they see it as going through progress because you're making it to the next level. When you watch judges on TV, you're making it to the next level. Then they'll always play the black and white card. If it does that, if they're doing the black and white card, you'll see it in the kids' videos. Because it's always this pass the level but not learn from Jesus, and you're just, every single time you're just meeting a judge. You're just meeting a judge. They might say some things or whatever, but you're basically just meeting a judge. And you're just, it's work. It's not about love or marriage, nothing like that. So I'm going to end it here. I'll come back because I got only 3 pages. But I was going to show you where it was, but I'll show you the next one.